welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be setting up the Crested table, I guess is what you can call it. My Crested geckos that I do have, right now I currently have 5 full grown, and I have 2 females and I have 3 males. One of my males has NBD. The other male does not have NBD, but he's still in a different tank. And then I have 2 females in this tank with a male currently. And last week we had our first clutch laid, and so in here we got our first baby gecko, which we'll show him in a minute. But I just got him in a small little tank so he can kind of find everything he needs. And we're going to be putting a feeding tray in his tank today as well. But before we get into setting all these up, because in today's video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up this tank, and this tank. We're going to be setting this one up for breeding. We're going to be setting this one up just to house males or females independently so that we can kind of separate them from each other. And then we're going to use this one here as another separation tank. Both of these tanks are, this tank and this tank are about the same size, so they're pretty large. They're big enough to house at least 2 or 3 Cresties comfortably, if not more than that. And I've had this tank set up for a while now, and these 3 have been doing great. No bite marks, no fighting, no tails dropped, nothing. They're just all doing great, and they're obviously comfortable enough to breed in there, and the eggs hatched in that tank as well. So we're going to be looking to do a lot more of the same as we did on that one, because that is my most successful tank with as far as plants and everything go. So before we get into scaping the tanks and setting them all up, I'm going to jump into what I got to run them all. So what I have running each of these tanks is just some dome lights and some UVB bulbs in each tank, and then some of them have different UVB bulbs, but most of them are all the same. And Cresties, from what I understand, they don't need a lot of heat, but it's better to have it, especially if you're trying to have a humid setup. A little bit of heat goes a long way, and that's why they're all in front of the window right here, so that, you know, we have that natural sunlight coming in for the plants. And sometimes if it directly comes through the window, it'll heat the tanks up. But for now, winter's coming and everything like that, so we got UVB bulbs, a little bit of heat, nothing crazy. They're not desert animals, so at night all the lights will be off and the temperatures will drop to a good little bit. Anyways, so basically what I have done for all of these is I have deep dome lights, UVB bulbs on every single tank, except for maybe that one. I think that one might have a LED bulb on it, and this one has a little bit different light. I haven't had UVB bulbs in these tanks here, and they've done great, so I don't know. I know that they do better with UVB, but long story short, UVB on all the tanks except for maybe that one, and that's going to be the breeding tank, and we don't want as much light in that one anyways to begin with. And then I have them all set up on a misting system. This is the exact mister I have them running on right now. It is a reptile humidifier misting system. Doesn't really have the company name on there. I guess that is the company. But it's sitting down there, and I have a 10-gallon tank that has the inlet ran in on it, and then there's obviously, it runs across the top of all the tanks. It doesn't put out as much pressure as I probably like it to, but I think it's because I have it spread out across so many and it has such a long way to go. So I'm thinking I might end up shortening that a little bit, but we'll just kind of play around with it, see if it helps, see if it doesn't. Push comes to shove, I'll just end up probably putting another buying another misting system to add on to that one and setting it over here so that we can run all the tanks, have a decent amount of pressure. But for now it'll work. So that's basically the gist of this right here. I'll give you guys the bulbs I'm using. So we have a 26 watt Repti home. We have 2 of these in this tank and this tank here, the 2 larger tanks. It's a Repti home 26 watt 5.0 tropical UVB. So it's a good little light. And then we have a 75 watt 120 volt 20 volt daylight. I guess the basis of this one here is to kind of mimic sunlight and then put a little bit of heat out. So like I said, these other ones don't put out as much heat. This one's putting out, I've already felt it, it puts out a decent amount of heat. Nothing crazy. It's going to yeah, nothing crazy. By the time it hits the bottom of the tank, it's already pretty mellowed out, so not a big deal. Shouldn't be too much at all. It's not a desert heating lamp for tropical animals. So there's that. And now I guess we're gonna get into the scaping. So I have all these plants here. This right here is golden moneywort. I don't want to show the price tag. We got golden moneywort. We got a Japanese spurge plant right here. We have another golden moneywort plant. We're gonna play with these, see which tank we want to put them in so they don't get trampled. Let's see, this says an exotic angel plant, so I'm not 100% sure on what. Oh, this one has a tag on it. This is a Scheffleria arboricola. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. But really like this plant. Hopefully it grows well in these tanks. It's got a hard stem, so they shouldn't be able to trample it or anything. Same thing goes with the Japanese spurge. We're going to try and kind of get this to grow like a vining plant, hopefully. And then we got a red and Photonia. And then these 2 plants here, I'm not 100% on the names. I just pulled them out of the tank. This one actually, the breeder. And we're going to be putting them in different tanks. Then we got some pieces of driftwood. I found these outside, rinsed them, made sure they're all good to go. This one here we're going to be using. And then we have this piece here that we'll also be using in a tank. Also found in my backyard. And then plenty of sticks as well that I found in my backyard. And then we'll be using lots of sphagnum moss to cover the bottom of the tank to keep that humidity down. Definitely in that tank we're going to be using lots of sphagnum moss for the breeder. And then I just realized I left a plant downstairs. We also have a specialty house plant, but this right here to me looks like a pothos. I'm not 100% sure if it is a pothos. It doesn't say on the tag, but we are going to plant this into the top of that log right there, and hopefully it grows out and over and all that good stuff. So that's the basis, the plan. I have one more plant I need to go grab. I left it downstairs, and then we'll be ready to go. So we're going to start scaping this tank. Every time I start a tank, I obviously start with substrate. They're a little bit, the walls and stuff are a little bit wet because I was testing out the misting system. Had a few leaks on it, had to figure out how it all works. So we'll go ahead and start with the substrate in this tank here. Yeah, we'll do that. This is a pretty good mixture of Eco Earth, Repti soil, and potting soil. I've used only potting soil, I've used only Repti soil, I've used only Eco Earth. All of them work fine. It's just preference. They'll all grow plants, so if that's what you're worried about and what you want, then I would definitely get a little bit of potting soil and some type of mixture. So this base layer here, I thought about doing a drainage layer. I decided against it just because the one tank that I have that is the most successful right now does not have a drainage layer, even though it's important. I'm not too worried about it right now. So now that we got that in there, we're going to set this big guy right here in the center and kind of try and get it propped up the way I want it to be. I would like for it to sit something like this right here. Might have to get a rock to hold it up. Well, doesn't look too bad. We'll use it right there. Then we have more space to plant another potted plant right there. So we're going to go ahead and try our best to fill up the back of this thing and fill up the middle of it. Try and get a really nice layer of dirt back in there for the pothos. And the good thing about pothos is they're not too difficult to grow. I'm growing pothos on the top of all my fish tanks, on the top of, not the top of, but in most of my other tanks as well. And I've not had an issue growing it at all. It grows in any sort of environment. Let's go ahead and try and get this guy in there. Normally people like to do their hardscape first, plants last, but I have an idea of what I want to do for this tank already. So I'm just kind of going with it. Doesn't have crazy roots. Alright, so got a good amount of substrate back there already. Alright, so this planted, it's up there. It looks pretty good. The roots from this plant are going to grow like crazy. They're definitely going to grow straight onto this piece of driftwood and everything else like that. So having it up there, the roots will go down and it won't really have enough to come down and kill any of my other plants that are going to be in here. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and move on to what we're going to plant in here next. This is already growing in another one of my tanks, or in the breeding tank. This is going to be the breeding tank. I took it out because I wanted to put it in a different tank, so when the breeding tank's not as cluttered. So we're going to grow that right there. Pothos, they should grow hand in hand, hopefully. Should get enough light as well. I like that right there. Kind of thicken it up. Then we'll just kind of take the rest of this substrate that's in this bucket now and fill the front of this. We got a lot of green in this tank right now. Thinking I'm going to want to switch it up just a little bit and add this plant here in the back left corner. Kind of thicken up this area just a smidge so it's got some more room for the roots to grow. Pop it back there in the corner. I think the money wort will kind of stay short in here, so I think that's what we're going to do. I think we're going to plant this and just pray that none of the Cresties that go in here trample this thing. think that's what we're going to go with here. Is just let those plants kind of grow. Hopefully this pink plant in the back left corner will kind of fill that corner up, grow up more. The moneywort we're hoping grows down. And then now what we're going to do, this is what it looks like before moss. Now we're going to take a bunch of moss and kind of try and fill all the areas around the plants, the front of this tank and everything like that for humidity. And probably put some moss up here around the top of this plant. And then we will spray the tank and then probably see if we can't get some sticks in there and then a feeding ledge. Alright, so the reason why I'm just spraying this even though I have misting system set up on it is to get all of these plants nice and rooted in. Because whenever you do plant tanks, if you don't know already, whenever you do plant tanks, you want to really make sure the soil and substrate and everything where you just planted them is really nice and wet. The good thing about pothos is as long as you got enough water coming in the tank pretty consistently, you don't have to worry about them not growing because of how well they naturally do. Alright, so now we got some moss in here. We're going to add. We're just going to kind of spread it across the ground, put it up around the bottom of the plants and the bottom of this tree here. And I got most of everything I'm using. The misting system, all the new lamps I bought, everything that I'm using for the most part in this in these builds that you're going to see is either from Amazon or Walmart. The tanks I bought from Petco, but that's about, I think that's about the only thing I bought from Petco, and my crickets of course. I love finding driftwood. Driftwood is probably my favorite thing to use in any tank because it's just, there's so many things you can do with it. It's always going to look nice in your tanks. And I mean, I definitely don't mind going out in the woods and looking myself. If you don't want to look yourself, look on Amazon, Facebook Marketplace. I've seen people selling driftwood on Facebook Marketplace. If you don't know where to find driftwood, go walk through the woods. Go to your local lake and look on the banks for washed up pieces of driftwood and stuff like that. If you live close to a lake, if you don't live close to the lake, you live up close to an ocean, go to the beach. Go to a nice beach where there's not many people. I used to live in South Florida. I know there's lots of driftwood down there. I saw it all the time. There's mangrove roots. There's all kinds of things that you can use down there. Some of that stuff you need to be careful with because you'll get in trouble for taking it, but as long as you know what you're doing, you should be okay. Alright, so that's the after getting all the moss in there. I mean, you can probably tell the moss makes a massive difference once it's in there. It makes the tank look 10 times more alive. Okay, next thing we're going to add into this tank here is the feeding ledge. And something to be aware of that I really didn't know or didn't think about, but whenever you have your Crested food in there, most every package says take it out after 24 hours. I've talked to so many breeders, I've talked to so many people that are a lot more experienced than me, and every time I ask one of them, hey, how do you get your Cresties to grow and what do you do to get them to be so healthy and everything, and they said, how often do you take their food dish out? And that is the main question they ask me every single time. How often are you changing their food dish? And are you taking it out after 1 day? Because if you leave it in there for just a little bit longer than you normally, than that 24 hours, it should be fine. But what I wanted to mention is that, and also make sure that when you place it, if you are going to have a misting system, or if you're just going to spray the tank, be careful, because if you leave it in there too long, it'll mold. The food will start to mold, it'll smell terrible. I've learned from myself, my geckos will literally knock the food dishes out of the feeding ledges, and I'll find it on the ground and it's full of water and it smells terrible. No, it hasn't killed them. No, I haven't had any of them trying to eat it. It's just not good for me because I don't want to smell terribleness. Anyways, so that's something to keep in mind doing one of these. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and add a few sticks in here just to kind of give them something a little bit more to climb on, because yes, the tank looks great, but we also aren't just doing this for looks. We're doing it for the geckos. That's something you need to always think about when you're setting these things up is my gecko going to be comfortable in here? Do I have the things that I need to have in here for my gecko to be comfortable? What else could I add for my gecko to be comfortable? Stuff like that. Once again, I just go outside, find some sticks, whatever looks good. Something I try and look for is try not to grab rotting wood. Don't grab rotting wood. Don't grab wood that has a bunch of holes in it, like it looks like mites or things could be in there eating on it. Try your best to avoid grabbing those. That's a few words of advice for you on that. And then just something else to keep in mind with driftwood. Sometimes you can have bugs come in on the driftwood, even after you rinse it, whatever the case may be. If you're not okay with that, don't grab driftwood from outside. That's my 2 cents for you on that. Just kind of trying to find places to set sticks up, different spots for them to hide and climb and do whatever else they need to do. Hopefully as all the plants grow and fill out, which, it's hit or miss, but hopefully as it all fills out, we'll have some nicer looking things. A little bit of patch of moss. Just kind of set it on there. This is moss I found from outside, but I've been growing it in one of my tanks. It seems to be doing okay, so I'm going to place some in here on this stick. Just kind of slap it on there. Alright, feeding ledge has to move because I don't think they're going to be able to just go over there and get to that. So we're going to put it right here, right next to this stick, because most of them know, most of my geckos know, and they'll slowly figure it out. Use some smaller sticks to kind of get a nice little pathway going up to there. If I were you, I'd never start scaping or anything like that with just oh, I'm going to build it exactly like this, because it normally doesn't work that way. And the nice thing about doing all this stuff is you can do it however you want, whatever your imagination tells you to do. But always try and make it pretty close to naturalistic for them, pretty close to where they're from, everything that they want and have in the wild, include it in your tank. all the necessities, whether it's climbing, sticks, whatever it may be. Just make sure it's in there. See, like that right there is nice. Now, you can kind of stick this over here into this, and the plant can grow right. Alright, you couldn't tell, but we had a brief little intermission because I ran out of substrate, and so we ended up getting another plant for this tank, and we're going to plant it right here in this front corner. My buddy, my friend, my best friend, told me I should put another smaller, bushier type plant up in the front of this tank here, and I'm going to do it. So, I'm going to put this right here in between the ending of all these sticks. Kind of fill this area out a little more. We took some of the moss out temporarily while we're doing this so we don't cover it in dirt. So, actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set this here for un momento, and we're going to put some more substrate in the tank. We'll get a close-up of this right here so you guys can get a good idea of what you're looking for when you're planting plants. So, whenever you plant a plant, you want to make sure, and I'm not sure how well you can see it because it's dark, but get an idea. It's about to the end of my knuckles there, deep. And then you just take your plant, kind of want to break the roots up a little bit just to you know, get them free so that they're not so balled up. You take it in there and then you just kind of backfill it. Press it in some, just like that right there. Make sure you don't bury the leaves of the other plants you put in the tank. Just kind of pat it in there. So then, now we got a whole nother plant in there. And what we'll do before we do the moss, we'll do the same thing we did with the other ones. Going to go ahead and shut this guy. That one's done. Now we're going to move on to this hexagon tank, and we're going to do it up real nice. So for this tank here, the idea I'm thinking of going with, and I'm probably going to have to break the top of this off, even though I really don't want to, but still got that jagged look, but it shortens it up some so it can sit flush against the back of the tank, kind of like that right there. So we'll go ahead and leave that one in there, kind of like that. Gives us another little stick to play with if we choose to. And now we'll go ahead and add the substrate in. So that's what we got right now for this one. I'm thinking, so this plant here is going in this tank. Now where it's going to go, I haven't decided yet. I'm pretty sure I want to put it in this back right corner here, on the right side of this plant. So we'll go ahead and take it out of the pot, and it's got a really big root ball. So something to keep in mind, especially when you're doing bigger plants like these. It's going to take up a lot of space, and they're going to need the substrate to grow into. So keep that in mind whenever you're setting these up. You know, you want to have enough room for these plants to grow, and you also want to have enough room when you are planting these plants so you can put more. So, you know, before you're picking your plants, know the size of your tank, get a good idea of the pot that it's in, because that's probably how big the roots are, and then you can go from there. So, kind of like the other one, I'm gonna leave a good amount of room. Dig a little hole, and then we're just gonna set it in there, kind of like that right there. Dig out a little space for these roots, and then go ahead and bury them. And then we're just gonna get a nice, good layer of substrate on top of it. I mean, enough to really bury those roots. Probably gonna have to add a good bit more of substrate over here in this tank. A leaf fell off, that's fine. Leaf litter is good to have in your tanks, and it's good for the substrate as well. So that plant is in there, it's nice and planted. We'll go ahead and water it in a little bit. Now we got that in there, now we got to think of placement of other plants. I think what I'm going to do, something I should have looked at while I was at Walmart, was another bulb. But I didn't do that. I think I'm going to plant this plant back here in the back left. So then it kind of gives that nice illusion. There's just not too much space for the, so I'm probably going to have to move it a little bit more here. So what I might do, none of those pots, this one's big enough to hold it. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to take this Japanese plant and I'm probably going to stick it back here, because it's going to grow straight up. So if we can get it to grow straight up this back corner and kind of fill this space, because we're going to bring that thicker plant forward. So that's the thought process behind that right there. So we're going to go ahead and get some more substrate in this tank before we start adding these other plants. Now, something I learned from another one of my friends, he actually used to be a landscaper. We went to dive school together. He's been one of my best friends. I've known him my whole life. Shout out to him. He knows who he is. He told me, when you're planting bigger rooted plants, something like this, you don't really want it to be on the glass. So I put that one on the glass, but I also made sure it had a lot of room to grow out. So keep that in mind. Those are some tips that I've learned, tips and tricks. That tank that I showed at the beginning of the video that I'll show again and talk a little bit more about. Some of those plants I did plant right up against the glass and they're doing fine. So I guess it just kind of depends on the plant. Now we're going to make room for this big boy that I have been growing in another one of my planted tanks, which is going to turn into the breeding tank for the Cresties. I've had this plant for a few months and it was growing in a really small tank. Didn't have crazy lights on it or anything, but it's grown really well, and that's this one right here. So it's got really thick roots on it. I might even kind of try and plant it back in there. So something you'll notice, and you might be thinking is, well, you planted that Japanese, I can't remember the name of it, somewhere around here. What are these things? Is I planted that Japanese plant in the back there, and you can't see it. Well, it's fine. It'll grow in. They're good. One of the reasons I built this table and put it where I did is so that it gets all of these tanks get a lot of natural sunlight, and with that they will get they'll grow better. So that's the main goal. It looks like we have 2 plants left to grow, to plant, and we're going to use those for the for the, I'm drawing a blank, for the breeder tank. We're not going to put those in here. This is as many plants as we're going to grow. Both of these are bigger plants, so they're going to just fill fill this area, have a little bit of play in the middle. And the good thing about this is, something to keep in mind, if you're going to have male and female Cresties, and you are going to try and breed them, I didn't know this, I learned this the other day. Females can still lay after you take them out of the tank with the male. So, goal for this is wherever I'm putting the moss for them to burrow and lay, I'm trying to keep it to where it's more up front. So if I did say, alright, well, she's still laying, I saw eggs, whatever, I can just pick up the moss and kind of sift through the dirt up here, because if they lay back there, it'd be fine. Like I said, I'm going to check these tanks nightly, make sure that there's no babies in there, because we don't want to lose any babies. That's the last thing we want. So let's go ahead and spray this in a little bit more. That's what we're looking like before the moss. Not sure how well you guys can see it. Definitely probably going to be, just trying to think, I'm going to add a feeding ledge somewhere in there against one of the plants. I'm sure y'all can hear all the crickets going off, because they are so annoying. So annoying. Let's continue. Add some moss in here. Realistically, in this tank, I could probably leave it the way it is and they would be perfectly happy. They got plants to hide in. But I'm going to fill this area up in the middle right here. I'm going to put some sticks in here, kind of give them some stuff to climb on. So it's not just a bunch of moss in the middle. Now, whenever I'm placing sticks, there's no rhyme or specificness to any of it. The only thing I'm doing, I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good, making sure it's going to stay pretty secure in there. And just kind of giving them, like I said, more things to climb on. Cresties obviously love climbing. They love to have that space to be able to climb. I've already decided which Cresty I'm going to throw in here. I'm going to throw my new younger male in here, because this tank, it's not small, but it's not quite as big as the other two bigger tanks. So it should be fine in there. He'll have a lot more room. He'll feel a lot more secure. And then I'm going to add his feeding ledge, which I got for free for buying him, which was awesome. I was so excited about that. I was like, you mean it? And they said, yeah, we mean it. They didn't say that, but that's how I felt. Alright, feeding ledge is in. The cups we'll put in there later. So, this is going to be it for this tank. Alright, so now we're going to do this last tank, and this is going to be the breeding tank. So, we're going to do this one a little different. We're going to put this in first, and the one thing that I was like hesitant about putting this in there for was I don't want them to lay behind it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it pretty bare back there behind it, so that there's not really they're not going to feel like, hey, I should lay back here. They're going to want to lay up front, because there's going to be more substrate up here. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some fresh substrate in here. A lot of this is pretty wet. This tank has also already been established, so the substrate in here is good. There should be some springtails and isopods in this tank as well. So we're going to be planting 2 plants in here, one on each side of this piece of cork bark, and we're going to kind of set it up like that. So take this first one, and these are Schefflera arboricola. Now this one's not going to be as heavily planted as the other ones because it's a breeding tank, so we want to have less stuff in there, more availability to grab things, and even if they're hiding behind that piece of driftwood, I'll still be able to get them out because they'll come out at night anyways. And like I said, I'm working at night right now, so when I come in here I can just scoop them out. Okay, so that's the kind of the look for that tank so far. We're going to put a little bit more substrate in the front here because this is where we're wanting them to lay. And I say this is the breeding tank, but to be honest, if I end up getting a male and a female and putting them in a tank together or something like that when they're young and they end up growing, whatever the case may be, I'm not going to be upset if they breed in another tank. I mean, I really, it doesn't matter too much to me. So we're going to take this plant here. It's just a fake hanging plant, and kind of put it up against this wall back here and just let it drape down the front here, just to kind of fill that empty space, give them something else to hide in, you know, it's whatever they want to do with it. I don't know if they'll use that, but so now with this tank here, we're going to try and put a good amount of moss in the front of it. So that's going to be it for this one. And that's going to be our final product for it. It's just 2 plants, a fake plant in the back, something for them to hide behind, a log for them to hide behind, and then we need a feeding ledge to go in there, which we have. We have plenty of feeding ledges. This one is magnetic, so we'll probably end up putting it on this side over here. Gonna set it a little lower, give them a nice closed platform to get on. And that's it. That is the breeding tank for males and females. Or at least that's the goal for that tank. Now, the last thing I'm wanting to do for every single one of these tanks, and this is what I was talking about earlier in the video, something I found essential to keeping planted tanks healthy, keeping your animals happy, and that's fans. CPU fans. That's what I like to use. I have 2 on my bearded dragon tank. I have 1 on my larger tank that, if you've watched my videos before, you know what I'm talking about. It's a tropical tank as well. It's got Cresties in there now. I mean, one of them will no longer be in there. I'm going to move them into one of these tanks. We'll blow down. We want it to blow down and put airflow into the tank, so we'll move this light more up front. Move this as far back as we can. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to plop a fan just sitting right on top of the tank. And then we'll plug it in over here and we'll set it. Till we can see some movement from our plants. Oh, it helps if you have it facing the right way to see that movement. Okay. So we don't want anything crazy. Just a nice little breeze in there. And all that's going to do is just help with air movement throughout the tank. So it's just going to kind of blow the air down. All these plants will get nice fresh oxygen every day. And that's the goal there. So then we're going to do the same with every single tank. Ooh. Just in case the camera dies, because we're at a point right now where it's like, okay, the camera dies and we're already close to the end of the video anyways. If the camera does die, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys for watching. This has been another video of Southern Scales. Hoping the camera doesn't die. But like I said, biggest thing with planted tanks to keep in mind, a fan and some type of, if you're going to mist it every day, mist it every day. If you don't think you want to mist it every day, spend 40 bucks on a misting system. Then you don't have to worry about coming in here, making sure you water your plants and everything like that. Just go ahead and get you a misting system. It'll save you a lot of headache and a lot of time. Let's see here. Just get a nice little flow going through this tank. See how it's making sure it's hitting down, and if you open the tank, yeah, it's just a nice breeze. It just kind of will hit the front of the tank and go for the rest of it. And then we have two more. We'll probably put this next one on the back there on top of the log for the air to come down off the front of it. So, basis to remember before the camera dies: fans, misting systems, make sure you have a lot of light, UVB bulbs, if not UVB, just some powerful, strong lighting fixtures. You know, CPU fans aren't expensive. Misting systems, they're a little bit pricey, $40 to $50 to $30. And then plants are going to run you a little expensive in the tank. I always like to keep bigger tanks for my animals. I don't want to put them in anything that's small. So that's just preference for me, something to keep in mind when you're doing these things. So anyways, well, thank you guys for watching another video. We have another one that we should be posting soon. We filmed it before this one, so it's going to kind of be a little bit like behind, you know, in the timeline of things, but we're going to try and get that out. We just haven't been able to post it yet, and then we're going to definitely get this one out. And If you guys enjoy it, please leave a like, leave a comment on any suggestions, anything you think I should do, or anything that I could do better, and maybe some future projects. I do have another future project. I built this table so that all these are sitting on. I plan on building a tank that is going to be close to the size of this table for tropical reptiles. It's going to have frogs and geckos and different things in it, probably for my day gecko and everything else like that. The tank that they're in now is going to be a fish tank in the front of it, so stay tuned. Leave a like, turn the notifications on so you can get a notification whenever I post, and also share it, please. I mean, I'm a smaller channel right now. I want to try and grow, so if you guys share my videos or whatever else, that'd be huge. Anyways, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.